All right, so phase 2 of this whole thing we've got going on here. I wanted to show you, one, how we can supercharge our plants for spring, really get some good growth. But two, I want to show you, because I'm doing it too, is how we tiptoe and step lightly into this. So we've got this bed filled, and the plants were just getting a little too big. Some of them were, some of them weren't, but we're planting. It's time, it's ready, let's do this, let's go. And what I'm referring to here is really when we get the plants in the ground, always do a pre-planting fertilizer, always. And spring is very different from summer, very, very different. So we want to set these plants up right. But if you're not really into fertilizing, and if you don't, and look, compost is not fertilizer in my mind. Compost is an amendment. It's a very good amendment, but it is not a fertilizer. So when we talk about fertilizer and you don't know how to do it and we want to tiptoe into it and not make a mistake, well, I'm trying a new fertilizer right now and I'm not really sure how it's going to go, so I'm tiptoeing into it myself. So I'll show you what I'm using. I do want to say this is going to be 3 rows of broccoli and then a row of cabbage, and then we're going to do cabbage in these 2 beds too. So between what we put into the greenhouse and what we had here, we have enough broccoli plants. Could probably do more, but really this works out pretty good. It's enough. So what I'm using here is this plant tone rig right here. Doesn't matter the brand. What we want to look at are these numbers. So this is 533. It's got a little bit more nitrogen in it, and I've used this before, so that's not an issue. What we're talking about though is we really want to push the nitrogen to these spring crops, because that's what they use mostly, is nitrogen. So we have this urea right here. So the joker that said, why don't you just piss in your garden because it's basically the same thing. First of all, I piss in my compost pile, not in my garden. And there's just something about me peeing in my garden that's just not good. And the other thing too is when I opened the urea, it didn't smell like pee. So do what you want with that. So I've laid out my drip system in this bed. I have not connected it to anything. I'm actually reusing the old parts for this bed from over there. And I'll take you over there in a minute and show you the progress on the pond. But we went ahead and laid the lines for when we do connect them. So we have our furrows dug, and then we're going to put in our pre-planting fertilizer. Pre-planting fertilizer. So if you're not into fertilizing and you want to stop, first of all, fertilizing will change your garden completely and it'll make it super productive. It's really good stuff. Excuse me. Wow. But we want to do a pre-planting fertilizer, and at minimum, if this is all you do, then you're at least setting yourself up for the right path, right? Now, the other part we want to get into is the soil that I'm using, and we'll get into that in a minute. This part's pretty easy. I just take it and I will just sprinkle it in there. Be pretty liberal with it too. And this will, like I said, this will get started. It takes a couple weeks for this to kick in because it's organic, but it'll be in place and it's in the soil where it needs to be because it has to break down. So this isn't a big deal. And you can see I just do a couple handfuls per row. And then we'll do this again later, but not underneath the plants. The next time I have to be on the surface. So we don't go too crazy with it. We just put a little bit in. Now the urea is something different. So this is a 4500. So it's pure nitrogen. There's nothing else in it. And like I said, this is really good. Anytime you have a lot of nitrogen, it's really good for this because it's what creates leaves. And that's what we're doing this time of year. We're creating leaves. We're not really creating fruits. So you can see, and I was very surprised when I opened this up what it looked like. So let's see. So it's pretty big. You know what I mean? It's not, I thought it was gonna be like a dust, kind of like blood meal. And before anybody asks, I'm not using blood meal because it attracts the raccoons to my garden, and then they dig up and they chew on my lines, and it's just a whole nightmare. So we've unfortunately had to eliminate that. That is my top choice. So now I'm just testing new things out. But all I'm gonna do is just sprinkle it in there lighter, and because it's so big, you probably have to zoom in on your app or whatever, but you can definitely see it easily and how much you're getting in. And so you just do a little bit, and we're gonna watch it and see. Now I usually, and the reason why I say like pile this in with it is because when I did the blood meal as well, I did the exact same thing I'm doing now, but with blood meal instead of urea, and it worked absolutely amazing. Now I don't know how much more I'm gonna put into this after this sowing, after this feeding, or yeah, feeding, even though it's a pre-planting feeding. And now the reason why I'm out here planting these now is the broccoli. This is the broccoli that got over shaded by the cabbage. So, you know, it's kind of like, hey, either get it in the ground or lose it. And it's just kind of a process that we had. So what I'm doing is I'm planting this roughly about 14 inches apart, roughly. And because they're kind of small and a little bit weak, I'm actually burying the stem a little bit as well, just to give it a little bit more support. They're looking pretty puny now, but they will bounce back. You know, you get the sunlight and all that going, it'll work out pretty good. So these are gonna go about 14 inches apart, and these are gonna go, because this flat Dutch cabbage gets pretty big, I may put it about 16 to 18 inches apart in the front row. All right, I wanted to take a quick peek at these roots too. So you can see, this is how big, this is a very small cell. And we caught this at the right time. You can see at the bottom, the roots were just starting to wrap a little bit. So this is a really good time to get this guy in the ground and get it so it can finally spread its roots wherever the heck it wants within reason. And well, really wherever it wants now. It's kind of stuck. And then to go over here and look at this broccoli. So here's the other seedlings we have. So we're gonna look at the broccoli here. And you can see this one's a pretty decent size. And again, I mean, we still could have left these in for a little while, but this is exactly what we want. Just like this, because the roots are still actively growing. And we ensure they're actively growing by doing one certain thing. Look at these plants. First of all, this back row is what we started in the greenhouse back in December. So they grew really slow because they didn't get a lot of sunlight, but I really like the way they grew. Here we go. Guess who's starting their broccoli seeds next year in December and where they're doing it? Over there and that guy. Wait, that guy right there. You can see we had some left over. We put those in, they're bigger. We put them in the back so the sun will hit them. But the reason why we were letting them, we're trying to encourage them to grow roots is look how they're limp right now. And so this is something that we do where we withhold water before we plant out so that they can get limp. And then when they start to dry out, what's happening is that plant goes into survival mode and it says, hey, I need to make roots and I need to make roots now. So it starts pushing energy to make roots, and that's exactly what we want. We don't want to put these plants in the ground and have them make plant material like leaves. We want them to start putting roots out, because if you got strong roots, you get strong fruits. Even though we're not making fruits, but you get it. So we're just going to keep going at this, and then so now we have a little bit of a conundrum because we don't have our system installed. So what I've done is I'm just going to run the sprinkler over it, and we're going to turn it on and just water the crap out of it. And you can see cloudy today, and that's on purpose. So it's cloudy, that means the sun's not beating down on it, it's not excessively drying it or anything like that. Now in the process, what we can do, because we have dried out our seedlings over here, is we can get them in the ground or get them watered at the same time, not have to do it ourselves. So this is a temporary fix until we get all the beds filled. Once all the beds are filled, then we'll come through and then we will put that irrigation system in. And I'll probably do a video on that, because I know I did it last year as well, but this is, God willing, the last time I'm gonna have to put in an irrigation system. So I'll use this opportunity again for all of you to see how we get it in the ground without tearing up the grass and everything as much as possible. So I'll try and bring that to you too here in a couple weeks. Unfortunately, it's getting really busy really fast. So next on the list is going to be taters, then rutabagas, and then we've got a whole bunch of Napa cabbages that actually did pretty good. So we're gonna go ahead and get those in the ground and get these lettuces in too in this bed. So we gotta get everything prepared. On that note, if you guys are getting anything prepared to put in the ground, let us know what you're putting in the ground. And actually, you know what I really wanna know is I really wanna know a variety that you're growing right now that you're really excited about for this year. Something that you're trying for the first time, or even something you're trying to master. Like I'm gonna do my Napa cabbages this season. I'm really excited about trying to get some Napa cabbages, and that's why we kind of decided to like pull back on the head cabbage a little bit and go a little bit heavier on the Napa cabbage and just go all in. You know, there's nothing like just that thrill ride, right? We're working on these beds. I figured I'd take you to where they were, and here's the hole for the pond that we dug. So we need to smooth it out a little bit and get it lined and everything, but this, hopefully this project will start going rather quickly. But that's we have to do it quick. I have to do it quick because I keep seeing a certain little individual peeing in there and thinking, hey, it's a big toilet. I'm like, well, as long as you're peeing in there and you're not doing anything else, fine. But we need to get it filled up, and we need to get it filled up soon because we're having fall spring right now, but we're gonna have more and more of these days, and these planting times are coming up, and we need to get everything planted. So hopefully within the next week we're gonna continue getting dirt for our beds and filling them up. I'm doing them by getting bulk and then doing it that way. So this bed right here cost me 20 bucks to fill up, and then this one will probably cost me 20 bucks too, and these each will probably cost me about 10 to 15 each, and then we'll call it good. And then what I'm going to do is I'm trying to wait it out, is I want to come back and I want to put some top soil into these beds and top them off. So the top soil is really good, and that's part of this too, is for supercharging, is like topsoil. And then when I start my beds like this, I fill them up for the first time. I put 50% topsoil, 50% compost in, and like this one still needs to be a little bit more. So then I'll top it off with topsoil, and I'll continuously do that, topsoil, 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 and then I will amend with compost and do it that way. And then that seems to work out really good for me, and everything's really happy, and I get a lot better growth when I start adding that topsoil, because I get that consistency in the soil that we're looking for, where it holds water, whereas compost will break down, but it doesn't really have the best consistency. It actually is a little too much drainage for my liking, so we do it that way. Now the other thing I'm going to do for these is I'm going to come out here. It's supposed to, well, since we're watering overhead too right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put those alfalfa pellets on the soil too, just to, as an insurance policy. I was hoping somebody listening would say that out loud, because they've heard me say it before. As for more nitrogen to build up into the soil. So we're going to work on that and get that in there, and then we'll come back as it starts to warm up, and then we're going to mulch, and then we're going to do that. But first we need to get everything going, get it in the right direction, and then we'll start adding the other things to it. So this is how I supercharge my garden. I did this for the past couple of years, and when I changed my fertilizing game, it went crazy. And so just so you know, there's going to be a lot of talk about fertilizer this year, a lot of talk, because not a lot, but a lot, because it's really important and we can use it to our advantage, and it's been mystified, and I want to demystify that for you, make you more comfortable with it as I did for myself. Because once I did that, my garden has grown like it has never grown before.
Goodbye.